Welcome back to our long-awaited EDH gameplay. Without wasting any time, let's meet our players. Today we have Beto playing the wide game and using Jetmir Nexus of Revels to roid out all the tokens he creates for some brutal swings. I've brought the Scarab God, hoping to amass an army of the undead and overwhelm my opponents with zombies. Mike, new to the channel, has Firja Judge of Valor, looking to dig deep with her cast effect. And last up we have Mark, running Selesnya Voltron with Nazahn Revered Bladesmith, hoping to take big swings at the rest of us. Be sure to comment below who you think will come out on top in this one. If you want to support the channel, consider using our TCG Player affiliate link below when making any purchases on the site. With that, let's begin the game.
Ready? Everyone's ready?
Beto wins the die roll and starts the game off with a tap Path of Ancestry. I draw, play a swamp, and start off strong with the turn 1 Sol Ring. I pass to Mike. Mike draws, and similar to Beto, plays a tapped Windbrisk Heights, hiding away a card. He passes. Mark draws for turn and plays a third tapped land with Myriad Landscape. He passes and we move on to turn 2. Beto drops a forest and plays a Secure Tribelder, passing the turn. I draw, play an island, and cast a Corpse Augur. As I pass to Mike, Beto sacks a Secure Tribelder and searches for a land. On Mike's turn, he plays a swamp and casts a Talisman of Hierarchy, passing the turn. Mark has another quick turn, playing a tapped Secluded Step and passing. Beto starts turn 3 with a Canopy Vista and then casts a Rumor Gatherer. Moving to my turn, I play another swamp and cast my commander, the Scarab God. I move to combat and swing at Mike with my Core Augur for 4 damage. Mike plays a swamp for turn and continues to ramp with an Orzhov Signet. He then plays a Scheming Symmetry, choosing for him and Mark to tutor a card to the top of their library.
I was gonna give it to you, but then you attacked me, bro.
Oh, bro, you messed up.
You're in my house and you disrespect me like this, bro? Disrespect yourself.
That's what happens.
After searching, we move to Mark's turn. He draws and plays a Rogue's Passage as his land for turn. He immediately activates his Myriad Landscape to go and search for 2 basic forests and passes. Beto draws and plays a mountain. He spends 3 mana to cast a Scepter of Celebration. He follows up with an Idol of Oblivion. He decides to pass through combat and ends his turn. On my upkeep, each opponent loses 1 life and I scry 1, leaving it on top. I then play a Command Tower and cast an Altar of Dementia. Paying 4, I then cast Gisa and Garalf. When they enter, I mill 4 cards and move to combat. I swing my Augur at Mark for 4 and my Commander at Beto for 5. No blockers are declared and damage is dealt as I pass over to Mike. Mike untaps and draws. He starts his turn by attempting to board wipe with a Damnation. I respond by sacking my Gisa and Garalf to mill myself 4 cards and my Core Augur to mill Beto 4 cards. With my Core Augur dying, I draw 5 and lose 5 for the creatures in my graveyard. The board wipe resolves and Mike follows up with a Reanimate on my Scarab God. But mid-decision, he decides that he'd rather take the Grave Titan in my graveyard, losing 6 life and creating 2 zombie tokens. After a powerful turn, he passes. On his end step, my Scarab God returns from the graveyard to my hand. Mark untaps and draws. He casts a Cultivate, getting 2 basics, 1 to the field and 1 to hand. He plays a forest and then casts a Rampant Growth, tutoring for another land. He passes as he searches. Beto untaps and draws.
Kinda don't want to do this for you guys.
Hey.
He hesitantly casts a Savala Explorer Returned and passes. I draw for turn and play a land. I cast a Thought Vessel to keep my large hand. I then cast a Corpse Harvester and pass to Mike. Mike draws and plays a land. He taps 5 mana to cast his commander, Firja Judge of Valor. He quickly moves to combat and swings my own Grave Titan at me for 6 damage, creating 2 more zombies on the attack. He also swings his other 2 zombies at Mark. We don't block and take the damage. He ends his turn. Mark draws and plays a Scavenger Grounds for turn. He pays 2 to continue to ramp with 3 visits. It's a recurring theme in our pod that Mark is by nature an unintentional cheater, as he doesn't tap a forest for his 3 visits. Unaware by his mistake, he passes and we move on to turn 6. Beto draws and plays a Castle Ardent Vale. He pays 3 mana to equip his Savala with the Scepter of Celebration. Moving to combat, he swings 4 at Mark. He takes the 4 and Beto gets to create 4 1/1s from the hit. He then casts Mirror Entity on his second main phase, scrying from the Path of Ancestry. He activates his idol to draw a card as he passes. I untap and draw. I play a swamp and recast my commander, the Scarab God. I then follow up with a Paradox Haze. With that, I wrap up my turn.
On your end step, I'm gonna exile these two.
Ooh, that's what he does. Go.
Mark hits me hard by casting a Sylvan Reclamation, exiling both my Paradox Haze and Altar of Dementia. In my feelings, we move on to Mike's turn. Mike draws and plays a Terramorphic Expanse, getting a tapped Plains. He moves straight to combat and swings his commander at Betho, the Grave Titan at me, and 4 zombies at Mark. No one blocks, but before damage, he is able to cast his Hideaway card from swinging with more than 3 creatures, Marauding Blight Priest. He gains 2 life from the attack, and then the rest of us lose 2 in addition to the attack. Mike also makes 2 more zombie tokens from the Grave Titan and passes.
He's on the Mark's board, bro.
You don't need it. You just take the board. It's empty over
Thank
there
you.
anyways.
What board?
Why wouldn't you? You ain't got no fucking creatures.
Because you're about to be dead next turn.
If you have to choose a creature that you wanted to live, bro, which would it be?
What? To live?
Yeah.
Why? Why are you gonna kill everything?
No, I don't want to carry you. But I don't like this swing at me, bro.
Oh,
I don't like these. I just don't like you, bro. Swing at me.
No, swing at him, bro.
Look at my health, bro.
I won't swing at you again.
Alright,
Done? Okay.
Are we cool? Are we cool? Are we cool?
Let me think about this.
Please.
After some deep thoughts deciding whether he should do something about Mike's board, Mark casts an insightful Kadama's Reach, getting his lands to the field and passes on yet another empty board. Betho draws and plays a tapped land. He then casts Big Daddy Jetmir, giving his creatures +2/+0 and Vigilance. Moving to combat, Betho swings his 4 tokens at Mike and his Savala and Mirror Entity at Mark. Mike blocks with his 2 zombies, but before damage, Mark decides to cast Rout, paying an additional 2 mana to cast it at flash speed.
So in response,
No way, bro. No way.
for Grand Crescendo,
Betho keeps his board and we move on to combat damage. After damage is resolved, Betho activates Savala to parlay. We all reveal the top card of our library and put it into our hand. Betho makes 2 mana and gains 2 life. He activates his idol to draw another card and passes, with my Scarab God returning to hand on the end step. On my turn, I draw and play a swamp. I then cast Sidisi Undead Vizier in hopes that I have Living Death in my deck.
Bro, please, bro. Tell me I put
If you have to guess if it's in there, bro, it's not in there. It's a fat card.
I don't know, man.
no, it's in there. It's
I
in
don't
there.
remember.
It's not in there, Frank. It's not in here, bro. You know how a good board though?
I attempt to politic with Mark, saying I'll board wipe with Crux of Fate if he lets me have 1 more turn with my graveyard since he has Scavenger Grounds in play. He declines, and as a man of my word, instead of grabbing a board wipe, I grab Liliana Death's Majesty and down tick to return my Grave Titan to board. I create 2 zombies and pass over to Mike.
Shit, damn, bro.
You got it, bro.
Y'all
You
made
got it
me
like
do
that,
it,
bro.
bro. You made me do it.
No.
Let's go.
Everything?
Exile
No.
all creatures. All
Creatures?
Mike casts and exiles all creatures with Merciless Eviction, but sneaky Betho decides to activate his Mirror Entity, paying 0 so his creatures are in the graveyard instead of exile.
I helped out, guys. So make things happen.
Yeah, but you were a problem
did it.
too. Don't act like you weren't a problem.
Bro,
the problem?
he had almost as many creatures as I did.
You did.
That's not allowed.
Mark untaps and draws for his turn. He finally brings out his commander, Nazahn, Revered Bladesmith. On the ETB trigger, he tutors and reveals Hammer of Nazahn, putting it to the field and auto-equipping to his commander. He follows up with a SRAM Senior Artificer, hoping to cash in on some card draw. He passes the turn. Betho starts off turn 8 with a draw and Toski.
Parallel Lives? What's the other one? Oh, it's in my head. Don't.
After casting some strong cards, he passes over to me. I draw and play another swamp. I cast my commander once again and follow up with a Noxious Ghoul. I uptick my Lily, milling 2 cards and making a zombie. Mark SRAM also dies, but we catch this during Mike's turn. I pass. Mike draws and plays a land for turn. He casts a Cliffhaven Vampire. Not wanting his creatures dead, he casts a Despark on my Noxious Ghoul, exiling it. He passes. Mark untaps, draws, and pays 6 mana to cast Soul of the Harvest. He then casts Swiftfoot Boots and equips it to Nazahn. He passes. Betho draws and plays a tap land. He casts a Rose Room Treasurer. He passes the turn. I untap and my opponents lose one while I scry one from my Scarab God. I scry the card to the bottom and draw. I play a Castle Vantress as my land for turn and then cast Wilhel the Rock Cleaver. I then cast everyone's favorite Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Everyone loses 6 life while I gain 18. I uptick my Lily, making another zombie and milling 2 cards. I cast Phyrexian Reclamation. Moving to combat, I swing my commander at Mike for 5 damage and a zombie at Betho for 2. Mike takes his 5, but Betho blocks and I make a zombie with Decay. Moving to my end step, I sack another non-decayed zombie token, getting to draw and replacing it with a decayed zombie. Mike untaps and draws. He pays 5 mana to cast Exquisite Blood with his Cliffhaven Vampire on board, ready to steal a wind.
Loses 1 life whenever. Oh, that's a combo.
That's
bro.
a combo.
If he can gain life.
If he finds a way to gain life, he wins the game.
Bro.
Oh, whenever he loses life.
Whenever
So you're
the
going to
opponent
combat?
loses life, I gain life.
Hey,
And whenever I gain life,
Hey, bro, you choose where this swings, bro.
you got no flyers?
Do I?
He moves to combat and swings his Flying Vampire at me. I declare no blocks, but Betho destroys the troublesome enchantment before damage with the Beast Within. Mike gets his 3/3 and I take the damage. After combat, Mike casts a Varragoth Bloodsky Sire. He passes, but on his end step, Mark decides to finally crack his Scavenger Grounds, exiling everyone's graveyard. I respond, paying 2 life to activate my Phyrexian Reclamation to return my Geralf Visionary Stitcher to hand. Somehow still alive, Mark moves to his turn and casts a Leonin Arbiter, making us pay 2 mana for searching our libraries. He draws a card from the creature entering and then pays 5 mana for a Danitha Benalia's Hope. There are no targets for its ETB trigger, but he gets to draw another card.
Mark, can you call my commander?
Divine Reckoning. Everyone chooses a creature. That creature lives.
Oh no!
With Mark's board wipe, I decide to keep my commander, Mark keeps his Soul of the Harvest, and Mike keeps his Varragoth. With my Gary dying, I make another Decayed Zombie with Wilhel. Betho untaps and equips his Scepter to his Ogre Warrior. He moves to combat and swings for 6 damage at me. Unable to block, I take 6 and he makes 12 tokens. Before his Rose Room Treasure trigger resolves, he activates his idol to draw a card. He then creates 2 treasures and pays to deal 4 damage to my Planeswalker with his Ogre Warrior. He passes. I untap and everyone loses 1 life on my upkeep while I scry 1, killing Mark in the process. I draw and play an Undead Warchief, pumping my zombies. I then cast my Geralf, giving my zombies flying. I then activate my Scarab God to bring back out my Grey Merchant with a devotion of 6. Mike dies on the trigger and I gain 12 life. I then move to combat and swing at Betho for 4 damage. With the best I could have done, I pass the turn. Betho untaps, draws, and plays a land. He pays 6 mana to cast his commander, pumping his creatures and giving them Vigilance, Trample, and Double Strike. He moves to combat and we bust out the calculator to add up the damage, but with an overwhelming board, my zombies are no match for his roided out tokens. I die and Betho wins the game.
I'll be honest. I saw 1 token. I completely forgot you had 11 of those hoes. I completely forgot. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm like, oh, this is a win.
Well, there you have it. Betho snatches a well-deserved win. After stopping Mike from going infinite and battling 2 board wipes, he was consistent in his ability to rebuild and accumulate value over time. Everyone fears Jetmir, especially once the double strike quota is met. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Remember, you can support the channel by using our TCG Player affiliate link below when ordering off the site, or by visiting our Patreon.